we'd like to welcome you to just have the conversation on the changes that have been implemented on the syllabus for the Certified Secretaries Course. And for now, I'd like to welcome our Vice Chair of LSK Nairobi branch, Madam Helen Namisi, to open the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Helen Namisi, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Law Society of Kenya, Nairobi branch. This is a devolved unit of the Law Society of Kenya. And basically, our mandate is to look into practice and welfare matters for members who practice in Nairobi and Kiambu counties. To this end, we actually do partner with several organizations or institutions that provide opportunities for our members to improve their practice or welfare concerns. Today we have our presenter from Traction School of Governance and Business, which is an institution that has been in partnership with the LSK Nairobi branch for quite a bit of time, since 2018. And we are very grateful for this partnership, because it is through this partnership that many of our members have been able to attend the CS courses and to sit exams. And we assume that they have been successful and have passed and qualified to be certified secretaries. As you may be aware, KASNEB has recently modified or changed the syllabus for the Certified Secretaries Qualification. And so in line with that, we felt that it is important for us to have a conversation this afternoon with our partner, Traction School of Governance and Business, as well as a representative from the ICS, Institute of Certified Secretaries, who will be able to tell you more about the changes. We'll be able to tell you about some of the exemptions that you enjoy as advocates, and also an opportunity for you to ask any burning questions that you may have about this new syllabus. Presumably, the syllabus is much easier now for the lawyers. I know lawyers are not very acute when it comes to accounting. And so if there are changes that require you not to take an accounting course, I'm sure that the lawyers will be very happy about that. So without much ado, I'd like to hand the program back over to Gloria, who will be able to introduce the presenters we have this afternoon. So please feel free to use the chat section to ask questions. Listen keenly to what the presenters have for us this afternoon, and make sure that by the time we leave this webinar this afternoon, your questions will have been answered. And we look forward to many of you undertaking the CS qualification course. Karibuni.
Thank you, Madam Helen. I'd like to just introduce Anastasia from Traction, just to elaborate more on what the webinar will be about. Anastasia. I don't believe she's connected. Anastasia, are you available? Okay, I don't believe we can hear you. So basically the changes that were effected, as said before, on the syllabus were to be implemented in the next intake, and we would like to basically cover that. If Anastasia will be available, she will be able to explain more on that. Unfortunately, I can't seem to hear her, but we'll move on to the first speaker. Our first speaker is.
Hi, Gloria.
Oh, okay. Hello, Anastasia. How are you? kindly take over and explain more about the webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I hope you can hear me now. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Anastasia Musyoka, and I'm the Business Development Officer at Traction School of Governance. We are one of the leading providers of KASNEB courses, which include CS, Certified Secretaries, CIFA, CPA, ATD, and CAMS. And today we are presenting this webinar to give you insights to the new KASNEB syllabus for our Certified Secretaries course. That's the main purpose of the webinar. You will also get to know the relevance of studying the Certified Secretaries course, and as well as the opportunities available in the marketplace for CS practitioners. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any question during the presentation, please type them in the chat box, and we will bring them up during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Now, without further ado, Gloria, you can introduce the speaker.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. As she has said, for any comments and questions, just type in the chat and we'll be able to get back to you. Our first speaker is Bernard Kiragu. He is a certified secretary with more than 15 years experience, and he has been providing company secretarial and statutory compliance advisory to entities across many sectors. And his areas of expertise include corporate governance, board structures and processes, and board evaluations, amongst others. And yes, he's the managing partner at Scribe Services and the chief trainer at Leading Edge Consulting. Welcome, Mr. Bernard.
Thank you so much. I'm not so sure about the background in terms of so much lighting. I'll probably try and move a little bit. But I won't really be taking much of the program, just really to bring us up to speed and really talk a little bit about Traction. Traction is really a subsidiary of Scribe Services, which, as you mentioned, is a leading corporate governance provision firm. And we started the college mainly to really satisfy the requirements we expect from the market, essentially on CS qualified graduates. And we are happy that we've partnered with LSK Nairobi, a partnership that has really served us well. And this really goes towards developing a pipeline of qualified practitioners as we go into the future. A bit about really the new syllabus, which was developed really with lots of input from the practitioners. It's really to address what are the growing demands for the profession, and we're happy to have been involved in this as KASNEB sought to deliver a syllabus that does address market demands. I'm happy to have Mr. Njuguna from KASNEB on this call as well. He's definitely going to be the one with the most information, and we're hoping that we're able to address all the concerns. I know there's a key issue about exemptions that were previously available to LSK members. We're hoping to get at least a response. But importantly, is to really ensure that we feel the benefit of what the new syllabus does provide for. I think I'm also happy that the president of our institute, ICS, is also here with us. At some point, we'll get to meet her, and she'll definitely give lots of input into what is required. I think I'd want to stop there for now, and then I'm available to answer questions as we move along. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Bernard. Next, I'd like to welcome Mr. Isaac. This is the Deputy Director of KASNEB to discuss more on what the changes are on the syllabus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, you can.
You can hear me?
Yes, Mr. Bernard, you can be heard.
Yeah, I'm joining you from Bujumbura, Burundi. The network here is not very good, but I hope that you'll be able just to hear me and pray that there's no interruption. I am Isaac Juguna, the Director of Examinations at KASNEB. And first, I wish to appreciate Traction School of Governance for taking up the initiative to train for the CS and other courses of KASNEB. For a long time, we have not had an accredited institution in that area. And I believe that this partnership will go a long way in terms of boosting the interest and even the numbers in the CS qualification. I also wish to appreciate very much the Nairobi LSK branch. They have been at the forefront in terms of promoting the CS among their members, and indeed in terms of the exemptions, they spearheaded that initiative together with the ICS and the KASNEB to come up with a summary of the exemptions for the LSK members. Yes, indeed, we have had a major syllabuses review. A major syllabuses review entails a change in terms of the structure of the qualification, and the CS qualification is among those that has undergone significant structural changes. A number of common papers have been removed. I know one of the papers, such as financial management, which really was a killer paper, if I may use that term, for CS professionals. It was a common paper with CPA. And instead, we have a paper that is targeted or is tailor-made to address what is the role of a CS as relates to financial management and accounting, rather than the complex aspects of financial management. I hope I've been allowed to share, because I wish to share something. I wish to share part of my screen. Just a minute. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we can.
You can see, yeah? All right. So I want just to share with you the new structure of the CS qualification. As you're going to see, we have, particularly at the former part 2, we have significantly restructured the qualification to address the market needs, as Cs Bernard mentioned. So at the foundation level, you note that we are no longer using the term part 1, part 2, or part 3. We are instead using foundation, intermediate, and advanced. And again, according to the, or in line with the international trends, we are supposed to communicate to the market the level of competence of a graduate at each of the levels. For instance, now at foundation level, we are saying you are having the basic foundation skills. Then you progress to the former part 2. We're talking about intermediate level skills. And then the former part 3, which is now advanced, we are talking about advanced level of competencies. So in part 1, or rather the former part 1, which is now foundation level,
Apologies
we
to
have those
interrupt,
papers.
Mr. Isaac.
Yes, please.
I believe we are viewing the wrong screen.
What screen are you seeing?
Basically the documents page.
Oh, there could be a delay then in uploading. Eh?
Sorry, you order something?
Just a second. I'm in a Zoom call. Just hold on. Hold on. Just a minute. Huh? Anastasia, are you able to see the screen? Are you able to see the screen?
The screen, but
not yet. The screen we are viewing is one for documents. I think you need to share the screen for the presentation.
I think there could be a delay in terms of.
Okay.
Are you seeing it now?
Now
yes.
we can see
Now it's okay.
Can you see the logo?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Let me just start with an overview of the Certified Secretaries Course. And I'll just take you through first, then I will go back to the issue of the exemptions. And as I was mentioning, that is a structure of the CS syllabus. You can see the foundation level. We have 6 papers: management principles and practice, which was previously in the former part 2, communication skills and records management. The issue of records management came in again to tie it with the role of the CS. Introduction to law and governance was there. Principles of accounting and taxation. We used to have principles of accounting. And then there was a taxation paper, which was again sat separately. We have merged the two. And again, this paper is specific to the CS so that we take them through the basic principles of accounting and taxation. The previous standalone papers were very, very detailed. Human resource management has come in here from part 3, again, so that they can, CSS can appreciate human resource management issues and issues of teamwork. And then ICT. This one is to give basic skills in terms of ICT. And then the intermediate level now, the profession starts to take a very distinct structure. And you're going to see a number of new papers that have come in and a movement of papers. Company law was there before. Public sector governance, policy and administration. We had public policy and administration at part 3, which has now come here. Meetings, compliance and administration. We used to have the law and procedure of meetings. You also note that the sections have gone. We used to have section 3, section 4. But these have been merged so that now we are having all the papers in a level. And this is to give flexibility to students in terms of selection of papers. Students will be expected to select a minimum of 3 papers and a maximum of all the papers in that particular level. For instance, you can sit company law, research, consultancy and advisory, and meetings. Previously, with the section 3 and section 4, you could not select papers in section 4 before you finish the ones in section 3. But the new structure again provides for that flexibility. Perhaps I could also mention at this point that previously, once you got a credit or a pass in a paper, the papers that you have not passed, you were given 5 sittings within which to pass those papers. And if you did not pass those papers, then whatever you had passed earlier was withdrawn and you would be required to resit the papers afresh. But for now, credits are retained permanently for you, and we do not withdraw the credits that you have. So that is intermediate level. Then you want to proceed to the advanced level. Advanced level, we have those papers. We have strategic management, finance for decision making, governance and compliance audit, and boardroom dynamics. Strategic management was there. Finance for decision making is a paper that was previously called financial management. It was it was a core paper with CPAs, and it posed a lot of challenges to CAs. So we sat back with stakeholders and we asked ourselves, do CSs need to undergo the same level and complexity of financial management as CPAs? And of course, the answer was no, because CSs are not professional accountants. So we role was to relate finance with regard to decision making. And this paper is a simplified version, not as complex as the previous financial management paper, and it is specific to CSs. It is not common with any other paper. Governance and compliance audit was the previous governance and secretarial audits, but we are now talking about compliance audits. And again, Boardroom Dynamics is a completely new paper which has come in. This paper again is part of our benchmarking and study visits. We noted the issue of boardroom dynamics as an emerging issue and as an emerging trend in the profession. And a number of examination bodies, including in South Africa and Australia, are now actually testing on this area. So it's a very, very critical paper for CSs in terms of their role in the boardroom. For today, I will not go through the detailed syllabus because I will now focus on the issue of exemptions, but I just want to run through the CS course in terms of the content. What I'm just projecting there is just the background information, and this one is nothing much has changed here, including the rules. But so as you look at the syllabus, and we have shared this already with the institution, with the traction. Again, the mode of the syllabus, basically for each paper, you have the learning outcomes, and the learning outcomes are very, very specific in terms of demonstration of competencies. We have aligned the syllabuses with the competencies, the competence framework, and the competence-based education and assessment, where after the end of each unit or paper, you are expected to demonstrate competence practically, not just through explanations and description. So that is basically what we have. And I will not go through the entire syllabus, but I may just pick a few papers just to show you in terms of the learning outcomes, in terms of the content. You can see the learning outcomes, that is for communication and communication skills and records management. And then we have under each paper. And again, this reference based on a research on the books that are available. And also under each item, you are going to see KASNEB e-learning resources. We have subscribed to a wide database of materials online. They may not be very, very specific, tailor-made to KASNEB the way the KASNEB programs are, word for word or topic by topic. But these materials are international-based material. As we know, the CS profession is a global profession. So you have a lot of e-learning resources that you can be able to access as an active student of KASNEB. And the link to register for these e-learning resources is available on our website. For instance, for this paper, you can see sample reading and reference material, some of the books that you can look at. And you can see number 6, KASNEB e-learning resources, and the link is on the website, and the KASNEB approved study packs. Now, we have quite a number of study packs out there, but we are going to review them and advise our students on which are some of the study packs that we would recommend for you. In addition, we are entering into a partnership with the professional bodies, including the ICS and other relevant institutions, such as the Kenya School of Law, to develop tailor-made study packs for our courses in law and CS. And that's why you are seeing I've also included there KASNEB approved study packs, because in the next 1 year, we expect to have some study packs on the ground, starting particularly in the areas of law and governance. And again, just to take you through, you can see sample reading and reference material for each of the papers, and then human resource management. Those are the learning outcomes. You note that the learning outcomes are very, very practical and have reference, or they make reference to tasks that are expected to be undertaken at the end of that course. That is for ICT. Again, this is a fairly high level, based on basic skills, providing the basic skills on ICT, because even CS professionals interact a lot with ICT. Then for company law, again, you can see this is based on the company law of the new company law of 2015. Again, in terms of the overall structure. Now, in the previous syllabus, there were a lot of overlaps between this paper and the paper on company or company sectorial practice, and the paper on meetings, law and procedure of meetings. There were a lot of overlaps which have been addressed, and you are not going to see these overlaps this time around. Public sector governance, policy and administration, again, those are the learning outcomes under this paper, because CSAs are expected to practice both in the public sector and the private sector. And their role as governance professionals also cuts across the two sectors. So this paper was basically initially in part 3, but it has been brought lower, as we have also removed some of the common papers that were common with other examinations to create room for the core papers. Again, you can see we have included the reference books that can be considered. And again, this reference material are just sample. You note that we have used the term sample reading and reference materials, and the message we are sending there is that these are not final. These are just a sample. I know training institutions could have others, so we are not ruling out any other reading and reference material that the training institution may recommend for their students. So that is public sector governance. As I did mention, I will not go into detail. I just browse through, and of course, these syllabuses are going to be shared. We intend to upload, even though we have shared already with the training institutions, we intend to upload these syllabuses on the students' portal on our website. So all active students who are booked for examinations and their renewals are up to date will be able to access this detailed syllabus on the student portal. So you have this paper, financial markets and specialized institutions. Again, this one looks at the role of the company secretaries with regard to the financial markets, the issue of the specialized institution, the issue of SACCOs, governance issues across board. Because again, a corporation secretary will be expected to provide similar services across various boards, including in the financial sector. And we also, of course, know the role of corporate secretaries as far as the financial sector is concerned. You're seeing pension schemes, trusts and foundations, clubs, cooperative societies, non-governmental organization, and reference to the Mwongozo Code of Governance and other codes of governance that have been issued by various authorities. This paper was previously in part 3, corporate governance and ethics. It is now in the intermediate level. And again, it forms a very strong foundation for the governance and compliance audit at the advanced level. So again, just an overview of the topics that are addressed and this paper. That is corporate governance and ethics, and again, a list of comprehensive list of sample reading and reference material that students can be able to use for purposes of their training. A completely new paper has been released, and that is the paper on research, consultancy, and advisory in recognition of the role of corporate secretaries. Their research issues need to build the body of knowledge that is currently available on governance. It is not static, so the issue of research comes in. Going into consultancy, a lot of CSs now are in the consultancy business and advisory. Again, this paper is a completely new paper, and again, the learning outcomes are well stipulated there in terms of research, in terms of consultancy, in terms of coaching and advisory services, including management consultancy services. So this paper, you have issues of research, the issues of the research process, issues of analyzing data interpretation and presentation, writing the reports, an introduction to advisory and consultancy, nature and purpose of management consulting, the consulting industry, the advisory discipline, conducting consultative and advisory services, facilitation skills, coaching skills, the consulting process, all the way up to report writing, action planning, implementation, termination of consultancy, strategy within a consultancy firm, legal and ethical issues applicable, marketing of the professional services, pricing of professional services, the entire process cycle, and of course, the reading, the sample reading and reference material have been broken down into those that relate to research methods and those that relate to consultancy and advisory. You also note that there is a last topic there, which is on a case study. We shall be testing or examining this paper through case studies. Finally, at the advanced level, you have the strategic management. This was there before. And of course, this is to appreciate the role of corporate secretary in strategy formulation. A very, very high level within the board, and they play a very key role in terms of formulating the strategic direction of an institution and whichever institution that they are serving. So that is on strategy. Most of these things are not very different from what was there before, but of course, emerging issues have also been brought in, and you note a very rich source of reading and reference material under this particular paper. From there, we go to finance for decision making. And again, as we said, this is a simplified version of the former complex financial management paper. However, there are certain fundamental skills that would also be required because corporate secretaries are going to interact with some of these issues in the industry. So the issue of financial statements analysis and forecasting, financial statements, you need to understand them. Budgeting and the budgetary control, again, is very important. Time value of money, the concept. Basic valuation, not very, very complex because again, we will be dealing particularly mergers and restructurings. You need also to understand, you should not just be seeing figures, but you need to understand what are these figures and how do they relate to shareholder value. The issue of capital budgeting and certainty, working capital management. You note that nowadays the corporate secretarial function is a separate division or department in an organization. And it will be expected of this division or department to undertake other expected responsibilities, including budgeting for that division, including working capital management within that division. So as division heads, corporate secretaries will not just be undertaking their specialized duties, but will also be expected to undertake other administrative functions that are expected of a head of a division. Again, those are the sample reading and reference material. Governance and compliance audits. Again, this paper was there before. As I did mention, it was previously governance and secretarial audits. Emphasis now is on compliance. Again, you see a broad layout of the papers, how they are going to be undertaken in terms of the topics and the specific subtopics in terms of compliance audit. And of course, at the end of it, you have the sample reading and reference material. Now, you have the Boardroom Dynamics, which is a broad new paper that has been introduced, very, very critical. And again, those are some of the learning outcomes. The issue of interrelationships, the decision-making process. There are a lot of politics in most boards today. And as a corporate secretary, you'll be expected to manage these politics and dynamics and interrelationships and even conflicts within the board. So the emergence of boardroom dynamics, again, you are taken through that history. Again, a brief on the codes of governance, the governance structures in various boards, skills, competencies, and diversity. And these are some of the dynamics that we are referring to. The psychology of the board. The board is a person. So you need to understand that, and the issue of psychology as it relates to the board thinking, and the issues of board agility, the decision-making process, culture in the boardroom. Definitely, boardroom culture would reflect the country's cultural background and the foundation, and that is expected to be reflected even up to the board. There are some boards where gender is separated in terms of seating arrangements. Again, that has to be reflected in terms of the board culture. The meeting design, your role in influencing boardroom dynamics, talent management, issues of board evaluation, contemporary issues, and case studies. Again, this paper will be tested a lot by use of case studies and scenarios of various circumstances. You have a very rich source of sample reading and reference material, including those that you can access for free, even from the website. And the respective links have also been provided for you. So in a nutshell, that is a syllabus that we launched the other day, and a lot of stakeholder engagement, as has been mentioned. And this syllabus will be examined for the first time in the December 2021, sorry, December 2021 sitting. So the August 2021, the exam that is coming to it will be based on the current syllabus as it is. But thereafter, all students will transit to the new syllabus. And I will just mention broadly about the transition protocols, because we are going to share these in detail with you on the students portal. So that is it. And maybe at this point, I could revert back to Anastasia, so that at least we can, I'll also present to you shortly the exemptions that we have discussed and which we intend to roll out pending final conclusion, and even perhaps an MOU with the LSK. But for purposes of transition, we have the sample exemptions that we shall be sharing with you shortly. And then I'm going to mention also about the transition protocols. So back to you, Anastasia, before we can proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you so much, Isaac. That was quite informative. I would like to invite Gloria, to take us to the next pointer. Gloria.
Yes. Thank you so much, Isaac. That was a very informative presentation. We have a number of questions that will be addressed in the Q&A session. But for now, I'd like to introduce the chair of ICS. Sorry. Yes, the chairman of ICS to speak. Chair lady, sorry, Madam Diana. Is she available? Anastasia, are you aware if she's available? Okay, as we wait on her, we can just proceed with the Q&A session, and she will address us at the end of the session.
Maybe I would propose that because some of the questions I would address in my next presentation, perhaps I could proceed with the issue of exemptions and the transition issues, and then if they'll come in, you can interrupt him. You can interrupt him at any point if the chair of the ICS comes in. If that's okay with you?
Yes, please proceed.
So I want to project the exemptions. I don't know whether you can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So as I said, these are transition exemptions. Of course, there would be discussions further, of course, with the LSK, but these have been put in place through discussions with the ICS and the registration of Certified Public Secretaries Board as a transition for the exemptions as we move on to the new syllabus. So what we have done is we have categorized the various groups of graduates and advocates that will be joining this program or are already in the program. And we have first looked at LLB graduates. These are fresh graduates who have not obtained the postgraduate diploma. And then we have advocates who have less than 5 years experience post-admission. Then we have advocates who have over 5 years but below 10 years. And then finally, we have advocates who have 10 years or more of experience. As we mentioned about these years, it's important to note that sometimes we have those on the margin. For instance, if you have 9.5 years, definitely we shall consider you as having 10 years experience. If you have 4.5 years, again, we shall consider you as having 5 years of experience. So we do also, and we have indeed considered marginal cases where people or applicants are within the boundary that we are looking at. Now that we have gone through the structure, I believe now you're able to understand well this categorization. Basically, for fresh graduates, there is a paper, there are two papers they'll be expected to sit at the foundation level. And this is a paper on principles of accounting and taxation, because most LLB undergraduate programs do not cover this. But we note that when they go through the postgraduate diploma, the commercial transactions paper would cover a lot on this. So those who have gone through the KSL, they would not be required to sit this paper. But those who have not, who have just fresh graduates, they'll be required to see the principles of accounting and taxation. But you note that all the others are exempted basically. Then the final two papers, we have human resource management. Fresh LLB graduates will be expected to sit this paper, but all the others will be exempted from this paper. And then ICT, because these are basics of ICT, which are also covered at the undergraduate degree level, then this will be exempted across board. In summary then, fresh LLB graduates will be expected to sit two papers, Principles of Accounting and Human Resource Management at the CS foundation level. But all the others, as you have noted, those below 5 years, those above, and those above 10 years, all the others are going to be exempted in the entire foundation level. We then proceed to the intermediate level. Now, because of the significant restructuring of qualification at from the intermediate level, a number of core papers that have come in, and you note that these papers, some of these papers now, the advocates will be required to sit them. Now, company law, this is exempted across board, but the paper public governance, policy, and administration, this one is compulsory across board for everyone. The paper on meetings, compliance, and administration, this paper now is considered as the core of the CSS work. And this paper now will be sat across board. It is a core paper for a CS, distinctive. Then you have a paper on financial markets and specialized institutions. And this paper addresses the governance issues in this very specialized industry, but where the role of a CS is very, very critical. But for those who have 10 years and above experience, this one's, that category is going to be exempted. But all the others are going to sit that paper. The paper on corporate governance and ethics, again, forms the core of the CS, and this will be, again, compulsory, just as it was in the previous exemption structure. Then you have a paper on research, consultancy, and advisory. Very, very critical paper. But for those who have over 5 years of experience, within the two bands, 5 to 10 years and above 10, both those two groups are going to be exempted. But for persons with less than 5 years experience and fresh graduates will be required to sit that paper. Strategic management, this will be compulsory for fresh graduates and graduates with less than 5 years experience. But those above 5 years experience are going to be exempted. Finance for decision making, again, a very critical paper. But let me note this, and I'll be talking about exemptions and the transition. If you are already past the current CS Part 2, that means you passed the financial management paper. You are not going to sit this paper at the advanced level. So you're going to be exempted in the finance for decision making. So if you are coming in from Part 2, having already sat the financial management paper, then you're going to claim an exemption in the finance for decision making paper. Persons with over 10 years post-admission experience will, however, be exempted in this paper. Governance and compliance audits. This paper, again, very critical to a CS and is going to be compulsory across board. Boardroom Dynamics, the brand new paper that has come in, again, is going to be compulsory across board. And our final paper is a research project. There's a research project that has been introduced. This research project, candidates will be expected to undertake research on a topical area of relevance to the CS profession. And the research should address an issue that is going to either address or provide a solution to a challenge that is facing the profession today, or promote the body of knowledge available to improve the standards of practice for CS profession. In the alternative, we are discussing with the ICS so that if a candidate can choose whether to undertake the project or to attend a series of workshops on matters of research and presentations. So that we are going to provide as an alternative, and we are discussing this with the ICS. Now, the research project is not going to affect those who will be sitting in December 2021, April 2022, and August 2022. The research project is going to apply for those who will still be in the system after August 2022 sitting. In other words, those who will have finished by August 2022 will not be required to undertake a project, neither will they be required to undertake these workshops. But anyone will not have finished CS after August 2022 will be subjected to this. And the reason we have had that gradual transition is to avoid a shock to our current group of so this is going to be gradual, and we are going to issue in due course guidelines on how these research projects are going to be undertaken and how these workshops are going to be attended and facilitated. But as I've mentioned, the requirement for project will take effect after the August 2022 sitting. As you can see, we have not denied you exemptions a lot, and basically the number of exemptions is fairly almost the same as it was before. Of course, you note that the number of papers has reduced from 18 to 16. Now, total exemptions for fresh graduates is 5. For those who have undertaken the postgraduate diploma, but with less than 5 years experience, 7 exemptions. For those
Mr. Isaac, I believe we've lost you for a minute. Okay. There seems to be some connection issues, but we hope Mr. Isaac will be able to join back in and complete the presentation. We've taken note of all your questions in the chat section, and we'll be able to address them soon. Anastasia?
Hi, Gloria.
Hi, are we able to have some of the questions addressed as we wait for Mr. Isaac to be available?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Just a quick one. Unfortunately, the ICS chairperson will be able to join us for today, but we will have Isaac address most of the issues and most of the questions on the chat room. Since most of them are based on exemptions, we can wait for him to rejoin. Just give me like a few minutes to contact him and I'll get back.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. As I said, I'm joining you from Bujumbura, and there are a lot of challenges in terms of the internet here. But I think I had finished what I was presenting. Maybe I could just mention in a minute or two about how we are transiting candidates from the current syllabus to the new syllabus. And basically, if you have any credits, if there are any papers that you have passed, then we are transferring those credits to the new papers. So long as the new papers are similar or equivalent to the papers that you have credits. So for instance, if you had credit in principles of accounting, and now we have principles of accounting and taxation, then we are transferring that credit to the new paper that is there. However, if a paper has moved and it is no longer in the same level where it was, for instance, if there was PPM in intermediate level, and now that paper has moved, then you will be required to undertake the equivalent paper that has come in. However, and I need to emphasize this, you'll not be required to sit more papers than you are expected to sit to complete CS. You'll not be required to sit more papers than you are expected to sit before you completed the CS. And of course, you note that, for instance, at the advanced level, those who had passed HRM, now HRM has moved to level 1 or the foundation level. However, your credit is going to be maintained, and we shall not ask you to sit another paper because HRM has moved. We shall not ask you to sit another paper because HRM have moved. So if you had passed a paper, you will not be required to sit an equivalent paper because the one you had passed has gone. I need to make that clear. But if you had failed a paper, that is when now you will be required, if the paper you had failed is no longer there, then you'll be required to sit a replacement paper that has come. Because there is a credit you had not attained, a new paper has come in, which is considered now a relevant competence for you, then you'll be required to sit for that new paper that has come in. For instance, let me give you an example. If you had a referral in human resource management, which was at the advanced level, and now that human resource management has moved, your referral will be transferred to the new competence paper that has come in, the Boardroom Dynamics. So you'll be required to sit the Boardroom Dynamics. But if you had passed, suppose you had passed HRM, Now, we'll not ask you to sit Boardroom Dynamics because HRM, Boardroom Dynamics has come to replace it. No. So if you had already passed, your pass is retained. But if you had a fail, then you'll transfer that fail or referral to the paper that has come in. So the transition issues for people who had passed papers should not be a challenge because your credits are going to be retained. And you are not going to do more papers because of the new change of syllabus, because the one that you had passed has gone. No. But if you had failed a paper and that paper is still there, you're going to sit the paper, the replacement paper. But if that paper is no longer there, then you are going to sit the new paper that has come in to replace that paper. I know this may not be very clear at this point, but we are going to share in the course of next week the detailed transition protocols on a paper by paper basis that will say, if you had a referral in this paper, what happens to you? If you had a pass in this paper, what happens to you? But if you finish, as I've said, by August 2022, again, the issue of the research project is not going to apply. So the bottom line is credits are retained and passed over to the equivalent papers that have come in. Referrals are also retained and passed over to the equivalent papers that have come in. But where there are no equivalent papers that have come in, those with referrals will be expected to sit the new papers that have come in to replace those that have been phased out and for which they had referrals. So maybe I can stop there and pass it back to Gloria and Anastasia and to guide us forward. And just to mention that I'll be expected back to report back to my assignment by 3:30, because I've just requested 1.5 hours. So I would request that maybe my questions could be raised and then I can be able to address them by 3:30. Thank you very much. Back to Gloria and Anastasia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isaac. We really appreciate that presentation. Due to consideration of your time, I'd just like to jump straight into the Q&A session. And Anastasia, would you like to read out some of the questions that have been raised?
Sure, Gloria. We have several questions. Most of them are similar, so we'll be answering the most important ones. We can start with the first question from Brenda. The question is there a research paper required for students under advanced level? Isaac, are you there?
Maybe we can read out a number of questions, around 3 or 5, then he'll be able to address them.
The second question is from Julia Diambo. Will someone who has done financial management do the same at advanced level? And Evelyn Jerry is asking whether one can presently sit for both CS5 and 6 examination. or one has to complete section 5 before proceeding to section 6. The fourth one, whether there are exemptions still available for LSK members or advocates, that has been answered. Yes, LSK members will have exemptions based on their years of practice. Then we have another question, which is, if I too can pass the financial management in part 2 under the old syllabus, will I be required to take it in the advanced level in the new syllabus? Those are 4 questions. Maybe we can have Isaac answer them for now.
Okay. Thank you. You'll note that I've addressed most of them in the presentations, but I can just revisit them again for clarity. The first one, yes, there is a research paper, but this research paper will take effect after the August 2022 sitting. There's a 1-year transition period before the research paper comes into effect. So for now, those who are in the system and those who are going to finish by August 2022 will not be required to sit the research paper. Financial management, I mentioned about it. If you are coming now to the new advanced level, and you had already finished financial management at the previous part 2, you will not be required to sit the finance for decision-making paper. So that one we need to be clear. Section 5 and 6, of course, in the new syllabus now, there's no section 5 or section 6. All of them are under the advanced level. As I mentioned, papers under the advanced level, you can sit them in any order. Previously, when we had sections, you could not move to section 6, or you could not book section 6 before finishing or attempting section 5 papers unless you are combining. But now, these papers at the advanced level and any other level that you have at the professional stage, you can book them in any order. You can pick paper number 6, paper number 3, paper number 1, or you take all of them. But you must take a minimum of 3. It's important to clarify that. You must take a minimum of 3 papers. Exemptions for LSK members, yes, we have I've gone through them based on the years of experience, and you have said those fresh university graduates who have not gone to the Kenya School of Law are going to be granted their 5 exemptions. Those who have been admitted will, and they have less than 5 years experience, will get 7 exemptions. Those with post-admission experience of 5 to 10 years will get 10 exemptions, and those with more than 10 years experience are going to get 12 exemptions. So we did clarify that, and I've also clarified on the issues of financial management. Thank you, Gloria and Anastasia. Back to you.
I'll take you through 3 more questions, then Gloria can take over. Another question is, so if advocates of over 10 years standing are accepted from financial market law, if one flunks it, can they just pay? Can they just pay to get the exemptions and proceed to the advanced stage? Another question is, if one fails financial markets law and strategic management papers coming from part 3, do they stand exempted from redoing the same papers? And then another question is, will the workshops be more expensive? If so, If so, it seems like I'm twisting. The research project should be revoked. And another question, will you also share the applicable exemptions for those doing or those who have completed degree in human resource management? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. I did not get clearly the first one with regard to financial markets law. Now, you note that financial markets law, we used to have it. It's not there anymore. Now, if you have passed it, you don't need to have any worries. But if you have not passed it, then you'll be required to sit the Boardroom Dynamics paper, because that's another core paper that has come in at that level. So those who had credits will not be affected, but those who had referrals, then that referral will be transferred to the new core paper that has come in, and that is a paper on Boardroom Dynamics. The issue of the financial markets law, again, the exemption. I don't know whether somebody was asking about the exemptions. Maybe you may need to repeat that question for me. Now, there's the issue of the workshops, and as I've noted, the workshops will take effect from September 2022. The issue of costs, yes, we have noted about it, but of course, as we come up with these guidelines for the workshops, we shall be very conscious of the issue of cost. And these workshops are likely to be facilitated within the premises of KASNEB or ICS to reduce the costs as much as possible. And of course, the two institutions will have to subsidize the cost of these workshops as much as possible, because we do not wish to have students unable to complete the qualification because of the cost of the workshops. On the chat, maybe I've seen a few questions also on the chat, but before I go to the chat, the issue of HRM, yes, we have a comprehensive exemptions schedule that covers various degrees across board. Not just HRM, but so many other degrees: economics, accounting, LLB, engineering, mathematics, across board. So we have those exemptions, and we shall be sharing with you as we share the detailed syllabuses in the course of next week. Now, the charts, when I look at the charts, there's an issue of financial markets. Of course, there was financial markets law. Some content of it has been covered under the new paper, financial institutions or specialized markets, which is in level 2. But you see, if you had a referral in financial markets law, we will not ask you to go back to intermediate level to sit it. As a transition, you will sit for the new paper that has come in. We cannot ask students to go backwards to sit papers that have been shifted. Now, if you had been exempted in papers which are no longer there, then the money that you had paid for those exemptions, is going to be credited back to your student account. And I'm looking at papers like human resource management, where some of you may have already paid to be exempted, but the paper has now gone back to foundation level. So you are not going to enjoy that exemption. So what we are going to do is that the exemption fees you had paid, we are going to credit back to you, and then you can utilize it to pay for examinations. And if you are graduating, then we refund it to you. Now, the exemption letter. There is a question here. If I already have an exemption letter, will it be valid in the new syllabus? Is it also possible to pay for more exemptions? For instance, under the old syllabus, MIS was not exempted, but with the new syllabus, ICT is exempted for advocates. Can I pay for the exemption over and above the exemptions that I already have. Indeed, if there are new papers that have come in and for which you are eligible to get exemptions, then you need to come and apply for exemption. The exemptions are not automatic. You have to come and apply for them. So if there are new papers that have come in that you're eligible, then you come and apply for them. But if you have paid and the papers are no longer there, that's when now we shall credit you. Will someone be exempted if they had done the paper and failed initially, but now have the required years of experience? Now, if you have already attempted a paper and failed, you have a result. And you cannot come and claim exemption because you already have a failed result. And a failed result cannot be converted into a pass result. Exemption is an exemption on its own pathway. So if you have a result, if you have a fail can only be converted into a pass through sitting a paper. We cannot convert a fail into an exemption because you've already sat for it and you have demonstrated that you have not made the competencies to pass that paper. So a fail cannot be converted into an exemption. It has to be converted into a pass through attempting the paper. If I had booked but wish to defer to December, deferment can only be effected by 30th July because that's the deadline for bookings. After 30th July, deferments will not be accepted. There is the issue of public policy governance and administration is covered under administrative law, constitutional law, and legal systems. But you note that our paper under CS also incorporates issues of governance, which are not covered in the law paper, and issues of public policy. So I would urge that you look at the content under the LLB program and you look at the content under the CS. And if you are convinced that you have covered the units part to part, then you can come and we discuss further. But as we stand now, the two contents may be similar, but they are not the same. Are you allowed to do papers in any section? Yes, you can, so long as you are within the same level. You cannot combine levels, but you can choose the papers in that level. Has the change of syllabus also affected CIFA? Yes, the change of syllabus has affected all our syllabuses, including CIFA, CPA, CCP, and the rest. Yes, so will the workshop be more expensive? The workshops will not be more expensive. As I've mentioned about, we will be very, very particular on the issue of cost. Now, the research project in terms of costing, again, we are going to look into it. What we are providing are pathways for those who wish to do the research project and those who wish to sit for the workshop. But as I've said, this may not affect you if you are able to finish before August 2022. But before then, we shall issue the guidelines on the workshops and the research to guide the way forward. So if advocates of over 10 years standing are exempt, FML, if one flunks it, can they just pay, got the exemption and proceed to the other two advanced stage papers? If you have, as I've mentioned, if you have attempted a paper and failed, you have to convince us that you can pass it, not through the exemption route, but through the passage. So if you have already attempted a paper, you forgo your right for exemption on it. Does it mean if one fails financial markets law and strategic management papers coming from part 3, one stands exempted from reviewing the said papers? If you fail strategic management is still there. So you sit the new strategic management paper. Financial markets law, as I say, you have the boardroom dynamics paper that has come in. Will you also share exemptions for HRM? I've answered that. Exemptions for CPA graduates, we have also developed, the exemption policy is very, very broad. and covers our graduates moving from one KASNEB qualification to the other KASNEB qualification. So that is also going to be shared as part of the wider exemption policy. What if someone had completed part 1 of CPA? Can they be further exempted? You cannot be exempt. I don't know whether they were referring to CS, but if there are exemptions that are coming and you're eligible for those exemptions, then you qualify to apply for those additional exemptions. Yes, you still need to pay for exemptions because these are distinct qualification from the one that you had done earlier. Why must exemptions be paid for? I think I've explained. This is a distinct qualification and you are pursuing now CS. If you had done them under CPA, that was CPA. Now these are distinct qualification. And that is why you still have to pay for those exemptions. But if you look at our exemption fees, vis-a-vis or in relation to other exemption fees charged by other institutions, our fees are still very, very low. The other issue to mention about exemptions is that now you will not be required to pay all exemptions at once. Instead, if you have exemptions at foundation level, you'll be allowed just to pay for those exemptions and sit for the papers, the remaining papers. Previously, you had to pay for all exemptions from foundation to advanced, but now you can pay them as you progress from one level to the other. And then what happens to exemptions given to advocates, but they have not sat for the exams under the current syllabus? The exemptions still remain if the papers are still there in the syllabus. Even if they have moved, the exemptions still remain. If you had already been issued with another exemption letter, the exemption letter will still stand unless you have additional exemptions that you qualify for. Because remember, the exemption was given as is at the time that that qualification was there. So unless now you qualify for additional exemptions under the revised syllabus, then the previous letter will still stand because it was dated as at the structure of the qualification as at that time. For the continuing students in part 2, are we going to undertake the new syllabus or the old part 3? For CS, you will now, all students will convert to the new syllabus. All students. It is in CPA where we have introduced specializations, where some students will continue under the old structure, while others will come in January 2022 under the specialization stream. But for CS, everybody will shift to the new syllabuses. Exemptions for CPA-K are still there. I think basically it is still the issue of exemptions which I've addressed. Let me stop there. And most of the questions are on exemptions. And once we share these exemptions, the detailed exemptions next week, then most of these issues will be addressed. Back to you, Anastasia and Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that session. I believe most questions have been answered, and as Isaac said, if your question hasn't been addressed, it will be addressed in a later session. For now, we thank you so much for everyone who attended, and I'd like to call on Wendy, the Programs Manager of LSK Nairobi branch, to close the session. Wendy? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Gloria. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. It has been quite a session. It's been informative. On behalf of LSK Nairobi branch, my name is Wendy Muganda, and the chair unfortunately could not join us, but we are glad we were joined by the vice chair. And he has expressed his gratitude for all the speakers who took their time to make the presentations today, and we look forward to more of such sessions. For those who still have questions, you can reach us on lsknairobi@gmail.com, or you can reach Traction. Their contacts, Anastasia will just type in the chat section their email address or phone number where you can reach them. And we hope that this partnership can move forward. We can have more advocates enrolling in the CS course. And just a reminder, for those who are Nairobi branch members, we still have the discounted rates at Traction School of Governance and Business. So we urge you to take advantage of this partnership and build your capacity. Thank you on behalf also of the Secretariat, Gloria and Leonora, who are able to coordinate this. Anastasia from Traction, I say thank you very much and have a lovely evening. Thank you, Gloria. We can't hear you, Gloria.
Oh, apologies for that. As we close, I'll just call upon Bernard just to say a few remarks on behalf of Traction. And in the meantime, kindly refer to the polls in the chat section just to give us some feedback on the webinar. Thank you. Bernard?
Thanks, Gloria. And I think thank you everyone for participating. I know there are more questions than answers. We're happy to provide information to LSK Nairobi members who wish to pursue the course. And I also think that the exemptions are quite generous. Initial indications were that they'll probably be half of what they have offered. But yet again, still a very good deal, I believe, and a very accelerated route to attaining the qualification, which enables people to practice as company secretaries, conduct governance audits as is required of all listed entities. We've seen the same requirements really also for all pension funds, especially the big ones. And state corporations are also required to do this audits, and you need the qualification to really provide these services. We believe there are numerous opportunities for CS practitioners as we move along, and I really want to encourage all of us to consider pursuing this qualification. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate everyone that has been able to attend. We also appreciate the speakers that were able to present, especially Mr. Isaac. We hope to be able to host more of this and tune into our social medias for the same kind of updates. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.